Good morning, viewers. Today I am present before you with the podcast on understanding the age of Dryden. Before I begin the podcast, it is advisable that you keep a notebook and a pen so that you can jot down the important points relating to this particular topic. It is further advisable to use earplugs for listening to the podcast. So here I begin. Three historical events deeply influenced the literary movements of the time: the restoration of the year 1660, the Roman Catholic controversy that raged during the latter half of Charles II's reign, and the revolution of the year 1688. The restoration of Charles II brought about a revolution in the literature of the times. With the collapse of the Puritan government, there sprang up activities that had been so long suppressed that they flew to violent excesses. The Commonwealth had insisted on gravity and decorum in all things. The Restoration encouraged a levity that often became immoral and indecent. Along with much that is sane and powerful, this latter tendency is prominent in the writings of the time, especially in the comedies. The strength of the religious, political passions of the time is reflected in the literature. The religion of the king was suspect, that of his brother James was avowedly papist, and James was the heir apparent to the crown. There was a prevalent suspicion of the Catholics, which, though it might have been groundless, was of such depth and intensity that it colors all the writings of the time. The lies of Titus Oates added to the popular frenzy, so that when the Earl of Shaftesbury sought to exclude James from the throne and supplant him by the Duke of Monmouth, it needed all the efforts of Charles, himself secretly a Roman Catholic, to save his brother. The famous poem of Dryden, Absalom and Achitophel, is an outstanding example of a kind of poem that abounded during those troubled years. James succeeded to the throne in 1685, but so soon did he reveal his Roman Catholic prejudices that he was rejected in 3 years and was replaced by Protestant sovereigns. Henceforth, religious passions diminish in intensity, and the literature of the succeeding years tends to emphasize the political rather than the religious side of public affairs. By the year 1660, Elizabethan Romanticism had all but spent itself. Of the great figures of the earlier era, only one survived, John Milton, and he had still to write Paradise Lost. But in everything, Milton was of the past. At the Restoration, he retired and worked in obscurity, and his great poem reveals no signs of the time in which his latter years were cast. At the Restoration, the break with the past was almost absolute. It involved our literature in the deepest degree, subject and style, took on a new spirit and outlook, a different attitude and aim. Hence, the post-Restoration period is often set up as the converse and antithesis of the previous Elizabethan age. It is called classical as opposed to the Elizabethan Romanticism, though the contrast between the two epochs need not be overemphasized, yet the differences are very great. Lacking the genius of the Elizabethans, the authors of the time turned to the great classical writers, in particular to the Latin writers, for guidance and inspiration. This habit, quite noticeable during the time of Dryden, deepened and hardened during the succeeding era of Pope, so much so that the latter laid down as a final test of excellence. I quote, "Learn hence, for ancient rules a just esteem. To copy nature is to copy them." Unquote. Charles II had spent most of his years of exile in France, and when he returned to England, he brought with him a new admiration for French literature. In particular, the effects of this penetrated very deeply into the drama, especially into comedy, the most copious literary product of the Restoration. Of French comedy, the great Molière was the outstanding exponent, and his influence was very great. In the more formal tragedy, French and classical models were combined to produce a new type called the heroic play. The type is well represented by the work of Dryden entitled Tyrannic Love. The Elizabethans too had drawn upon the ancients, but they used their gains freely and joyously, bending the work of the classical authors to their own wills. The imitative work of the new school was of a frigid and limited quality. The school of Dryden was loath to alter. The age of Pope abandoned freedom altogether. Pope puts it thus: those rules of old discovered, not devised, are nature still, but nature methodized. Thus, they evolved a number of rules which can usefully be summarized in the injunction, be correct. Correctness means avoidance of enthusiasm, moderate opinions moderately expressed, strict care and accuracy in poetical technique, and humble imitation of the style of the Latin classics. Dryden did not attain altogether to this ideal. Pope and his immediate successors called him copious, thus hinting at a lack of care and an unrestrained vigor that were survivals of an early virility. Yet, Dryden has the new tendency very clearly marked. To him, Dr. Johnson first applied the epithet Augustan, saying that Dryden did to English literature what Augustus did to Rome, which he found of brick and left of marble. Dryden is the first great exponent of the new ideas that were to dominate our literature till the end of the 18th century. So, this was a small note on understanding the age of Dryden, that how the political, the social, and historical conditions were shaping up a new age which was just emerging from the dark clutches of Puritanism. Whatever was being restricted in the Puritanical age was now open in the Restoration times. Because of this, there was too much freedom, and hence the need of the hour was to exercise some kind of a control. I hope this podcast proved to be of help in making each one of you understand the age of Dryden in a better way. Please mention your questions and observations in the comment section below. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon for latest update. Thank you for your valuable time. Here's wishing you a great day ahead.